speaking with somebody not too long ago about disorders like manic depressive disorder, bipolar tendencies, the tendency to have dramatic shifts and mood swings sporadically, and ADHD, and the correlation between hyperactivity, hyperactive energies, the inability to maintain attention spans, inability to focus on any given topic for more than a very short span of time, and the tendency for the mind to drift into differing topics in regards to the Kundalini impulse and anxiety disorders and the potentialities of all these things being connected to a pent up energy system in the body, or a pent up energy in the body's system. And it got me thinking that I saw Trouble catch a spider yesterday on the kitchen floor at my mom's place, and he smacks it a couple times, and then before it's even dead, he just scoops it up and eats it. Like, what the fuck? He just eats it. How fucking creepy is that? It's a spider, and he just like goes straight to eating it, no thought whatsoever to it. Also, check this out. This is this is paper thin, old school taffy. How cool is that? I also got a gigantic apple. I mean, that's like the size of my head. And what else? Giant chapstick that I found that was given to me by a student I once had a little while back, not too long ago, relatively speaking. And it's raining outside. Anyways, the actual subject matter of this video is I wanted to tell a couple stories relating what I mean when I speak to I wanted to talk about what I mean when I'm talking about the concept of God altogether in secular theology and in principle dynamics and the whole thing really. And B, I wanted to relate a couple stories speaking to what I mean when I speak timeless communications or timelessness in communications, eternality, because I don't feel like I've given much of an example to that effect at all. And saying that, something doesn't make sense right away and then makes sense later, of course, is common sense. So it's not like that's not really saying much of anything. And you have to speak to exactly what I mean by that. But what I'm speaking to is when events coincide, which coincidence itself does not mean meaningless. It is not absent or void of meaning or significance. Coincidence means to coincide. So the term synchronicity at that point is kind of redundant, but synchronicity actually speaks to the avenue of psychiatric work that is presenting this as a viable phenomenon, and the study of these coincidences and events corresponding in that way with some degree of psychology, a psychological force in play behind them, which is what I mean to speak to when I'm talking about the God entity. I'm not talking about anybody's mythology of God. I am saying that there is a force that is in play. The world has life in it. The world has consciousness. We know this. Consciousness is not created in the brain. We know that for several reasons. One, because it doesn't even stand to reason. It doesn't make any sense. There's nothing to suggest that the brain is creating its own consciousness or even its own energy. And B, we see it in things that don't have brains. So we see consciousness everywhere. It's in everything. And there is intelligent design in play because there is obvious design to the world, and it just couldn't work without it. So I mean, it's really stupid to discard that idea. It's a stupid idea to go ahead and discard the idea of there being intelligence behind the design of the world. The world is very obviously designed. At the base level, there has to be something creating these rules, these laws. There is a consciousness, and we know that we have consciousness. We are consciousness. We are intelligent entities. So we all share life. We all share a single soul, and that's what I speak to when I'm talking about the God entity, is that there is a single identity in play that becomes all of us, that fractures into all of these considerations, and that indeed I believe that not only do we communicate with it via our own personal value systems, but there is artifacts of an initial first cause in play, that there are things that are values that are universal for everybody, and that we can identify the actual bottom line significance in meaning itself through launching an investigation into what the perspective or identity of this one oversoul might be. Like, what what is the real story. And through investigating our mythologies, we find so many different coincidences therein. We find so many different factors lining up in these different mythologies that we can, in fact, identify the values in play that are consistent across the board. And you know, delve back through our own, through the psychology of the world itself, through humanity itself, and through the psychology of the very laws of nature themselves to, a bottom line understanding, a core understanding of what that first cause is and what's really happening now. So that's what I mean too when we speak to investigating God. I'm talking about God as in like the mystery of origin, the mystery of existence. That's what I think of God as. And as a personal an extension of my own personality, you know, my body and my mind, the relationship between the two, my ability to communicate between myself and the world, the ability to, experience life in the world, communicating directly with me. And so examples of this that I can give, to begin with, the way I found my cat, I was, well, let's go through the whole thing actually. The way I met my wife, I used to have dreams of this girl that was like a dance partner to me, and she was kind of like a criminal partner, sort of, but we were treasure hunters, we weren't thieves, but we were seeking this artifact. And the artifact in the dream, which I had no concept of this, but the artifact clearly represented duality. It was a dual edged sword, a dual edged kind of a scimitar blade that had one blade for night and one for day, and gold and ivory, and then uh, black and silver was the other side. But it represented duality. And then there was this character that was my partner, my life partner, that I was with her forever. We were always together, we were the best of friends, we were the closest, we were in love with each other, we were dance partners. And I don't remember what her actual name in the dream was, but it sounded something like Dismond, so I named her Dismond. The second name was Ray. It was something Ray, R-A-E, and so I named her Dismond Ray because I knew I had Ray. And then I named her Dismond based on the best I could recall, or the best name I could come up with for it. And we had all these crazy experiences and all these recurring dreams with this character repeatedly coming back in my dreams, and this story of another life with her playing out. And I got so obsessed with it because I like worshipped this character. I didn't like worship, like kneel at her altar, but I had a certain obsession with this character, and I thought of her as being like a goddess to me. She was my partner and the most beautiful thing to me. And of course, I do have this idea, as I said, of the God entity being like a partner to all of us. And, to you personally, it's your partner. It's the force that you're working with. It's the body you have. It's the life that you have. And so it's my partner. And then I have this character representing this goddess character that I'm in love with in my dreams, and she's my ultimate partner. And I even wrote a little story about that I called Dual Entity, about the dreams. But in any case, uh, I had these recurring dreams again and again, and I became so fanatical about this, finding this partner, looking for this partner. I drew a picture of her, and it's still to this day the very best picture I've ever drawn. I've never even come close to drawing something that well again. And it was a perfect full size, life size portrait of her face. And so, anyways, uh, when we first started philanthropy, this we had people that would come in, and synchronicity was so firmly in play. It was so prevalent and so consistent at that point that we didn't even regard it anymore. It was just like, of course, like every day somebody would come in. The premise of philanthropy at that point, this was its infancy, but the premise was basically to provide help to people in whatever way we could. Anybody wanted help with something, they could come to us, and people would come to us with personal problems. And of course, every time it would be like we had just found the solution they needed immediately beforehand, like the day before or even earlier that day. And my partner at the time helping me build philanthropy, Sean, he eventually took off. He had a problem with acid that caused him to go a little loopy, and he ran off and became an obsessive weightlifter. He stole our entire library in the process. He became like an obsessive bodybuilder. So he took off. But at the time, he was my partner, and this girl came to see him and asked him if we could help her with the problem with her boyfriend. I think it had something to do with like her boyfriend might have been cheating on her, and she wanted us to find out for her. Something to that effect. I don't know because I didn't pay a lot of attention to it because the solution presented itself in me when I walked into the room where she was waiting for to see me to meet me, and this was Sublime. She's playing Sublime and dancing to Sublime in this room, and it's her. It's the dancing chick from my dream. It's exactly her. And I mean, I told her right then and there, "You're my partner. You're from my dreams. You know, we belong together." And this is a massive synchronicity. And she didn't believe me at first, but I showed her the picture, and the picture was an identical mirror image of her. So I mean, that played out there. But then I was people in the neighborhood would ask me to help find their cats was one of the things that philanthropy did at the time because I had done work with the APL with the catch and release program, the volunteer catch and release program to spay and neuter animals, stray animals, and I was good at tracking and catching strays, so they would ask me to help find their strays whenever a cat went stray. And uh, a friend of mine asked me to look for his cat, and I went looking for it in the neighborhood that he gave me, and I'm sprinkling catnip. I go to this church parking lot, which is a church parking lot, completely empty, and of course the church obviously is in some way representative of the God idea, God concept, and it's this empty fucking parking lot that is on the corner by Detroit, and nobody in it, no cars in it, nothing in it. I have full view around me, and I don't see anything in this lot. And I sprinkle catnip to get it in the air, to get the smell in the air. You know, that's a trick to catching the animals, catching cats. And I'm have a bag of treats that I'm making the noise with, and nothing happens. So I'm about to give up, and I turn around to leave, and right behind me just appeared in the parking lot is this beautiful, perfect white cat with brilliant blue eyes, and she's just standing there like smiling at me, kind of like I know cats look like they're smiling all the time, except for Fiasco has a fucking stink face, but you know, she looks like she's smiling. She's standing there just waiting for me to pick her up, and she lets me pick her up and take her. I went and I checked around, and she just appeared in the parking lot. Mind you, this is like 17 years later now, and she was fully grown when I found her, and she's still in perfect condition. I've had so many different dreams with her in it that she'd come and sleep next to me, and I'd have dreams with her in it that she would guide me around, and prophetic dreams as well. Many, many, many prophetic dreams. That's like a big deal in my life is prophetic dreams, but obviously like the one with the girl, and with Desmond Ray, but um, what happened? So I took her. I checked around, and nobody had been missing this cat. Nobody had ever seen this cat. It was not the cat I was looking for, and no, it was nobody had lost it. So I kept her. I named her Mighty Raikou, and I named her Raikou after a character from a video game that it turned out Megan Lee is the name of the girl who came to philanthropy seeking help, and she was my partner, and she had a thing for the video game I was playing, so she came over to check out the video game, and she saw the cat, fell in love with the cat, and started hanging around for that because of the cat, which brought us together and kind of cemented our relationship. And we started dancing with each other and hanging out a lot just for the sake of dancing, and we kind of built this sort of feudal little rivalry where I would say she would do something. She was very sexual. This girl, Megan, she is very sexual and very sexually oriented person, and she would make remarks about sexuality, and I would make remarks about her beautiful ass cheeks. So I took to calling her sweetie cheeks, and um, of course I told her I had to inform her. You know, I'm not going to lie to her. I had to inform her that my ass is indeed much more fantastic than hers, but she would say, "Yeah, right. You couldn't handle this ass," and I would tell her, "Of course you couldn't handle this. You'd have way too big an orgasm. You know, you can't." We'd have that kind of like rivalry going on between us, betting each other on bed, in a manner of speaking. And eventually we got together. I'm going to tell that story in depth for in its own right, but eventually we got together because of the cat largely, and we married and we stayed together for a long, long time, and we were perfect partners. We were entirely inseparable, just like the dream, until we did split up for good. But I mean, we reconciled. We're back together now as friends. Where she's my best friend in the world, and she helped build the initiative. But this was before the initiative when I first met her. But um, and of course, I did win the rivalry. I mean, she can tell you, matter of fact, and she will tell you if you ask her, eyewitness opinion or firsthand witness opinion that we did in fact have like the greatest sex in recorded history. But I'm pretty sure I won that one. I mean, like, I was just a little. I was over. I mean, she was my student after all. To be fair, I mean, we had sex on somebody's fire escape. We had sex up against somebody's fence in their backyard while their parrot squawked at us out the window. We had sex in the public park at night once, but we got arrested for that. Mind you, our arrest record is personal information. Thank you, but we had a great sex life. Was the point, and later on, I found out much further after we actually split up. I found out that Ray, RAE, is actually a name that's representative of one of the three major cults that came together to form Israel and became like one of the biggest religious cults of all time, and still is really. It's kind of where everything came from ultimately. But Isis is the feminine aspect of the lunar deity. That's one cult. Re, what later became Ra in the masculine form, is the solar god or the solar deity. That's the Egyptian solar god. That was that cult, and then El, I think, was like nature worship or something, and the three of them came together to form Israel. And so I found that out, which is a neat little coincidence considering I had no idea about that years and years later. And then, of course, the cat in the church parking lot leading me to my ultimate partner from the dream, just all of these things lining up. It's like it's very evident that there's some force in play that's plotting things, planning things, making things happen. And you'll even find if you just pay attention to the little conversations you might have with yourself from time to time, or even the thoughts you have in your head, that sometimes you'll say things to yourself that you don't really know what it means until later. Like you'll say something that has a meaning that you're not really aware of until you become aware of it. And most especially if you're paying attention to yourself and treating your body as though it is, in fact, a partner to you. That you are not your body. Your body is something that is living, and you are the influence that is guiding it. So, and that those are instances of it, of what I mean by that, by the timelessness in play. Also, the stick thing the other night, where I already told this story, but I'll tell it real briefly again. When I went and I lost the lottery ticket. Now, I had left my mom's place initially because I didn't have the stick to practice with Jay. He had lost the stick, so that's why I left. That's why I wound up getting the lottery ticket in the first place. Then on the way back, I lose the lottery ticket, and where I presume I lost it was at this house with the fabricated roadkill in front, the stuffed animal torn to pieces in front. And I figured that's where I must have lost the ticket, and they must have taken it. And then when I'm walking home that night, there's that perfect stick for training sitting in front of their yard, like compensating me for it. And of course, you could easily say, well, that stick would have been lying there and you'd have stumbled across it regardless, but I wouldn't have had the values in play that would have allotted for me to take the stick and make use of it. I wouldn't have stolen the stick from them if I didn't think of it as repayment for them having stolen the ticket I dropped. So maybe I ought to give that stick back. Anyway, that's just instances of what I mean, and they're undeniable for you and your personal experience. They're undeniable when you see these things happen. Happens once or twice, fine. It happens consistently every single day. The more that you engage it, the more it happens, just like the teachings we've been provided tell us will happen. At the very least, you have a psychosomatic response in play. At the very least, you are making things happen somehow via this psychic presentation. So it's not No matter what, it's not debatable that there is a force in place. Something is there, and we're trying to figure out what it is, and that's what soul mechanics is all about. So please, if you have any stories of this sort, share them. Share them with the channel. Jump onto the Remnants of Tomorrow program, which is, you can jump on the Status Initiative page on Facebook, the group page, if you want. There's a lot of people there. You can share shit, but nobody's really going to share a lot of stuff there because they're not the target audience. They're just everyone. The target audience for this specific channel and for what we want to teach each other and learn here and glean from each other and the technology we're seeking to develop together here is the Remnants of Tomorrow program, the group page Remnants of Tomorrow on Facebook that we're trying to get started. There's only a few people in there now, but we want to get that up and running. So please join up there, share your stories. If you have any stories of this kind, share them. Share any ideas you have, anything you want to share of this sort, or any sort really, but particularly of this for Remnants of Tomorrow and for Soul Mechanics. Please give ideas, give feedback, like and subscribe to fucking videos so that I have, you know, some measure of fucking authenticity here. Please just, if you engage this and you take it seriously by any measure, you're going to gain out hugely. Your life's going to change for the better. You're going to become aware of incredible possibilities you may not have ever known existed at all, and your life is going to just light the fuck up. So please get involved. Just don't be an asshole. I mean, I don't know what, maybe you guys don't understand, or but nobody's really giving any feedback regarding what I'm presenting you, and it's bullshit. So I'm working my ass off for you guys here. So please fucking do something. Thank you so much for your time. Kila Salai, Terve Uni Siar Namaste.